In the meantime, let's take you to the Solomon Islands in the South Pacific, where MPs have chosen Jeremiah Manele as its new Prime Minister. Former Foreign Minister has pledged to continue the country's pro-China policy after a general election which produced no overall majority for any party. The election was being closely watched because of the potential impact on regional security after the former PM reached a security agreement with China in 2022. Well, for more on this, Adam Hancock joins us now from Sydney. Adam, first of all, a lot of people may not even have heard of the Solomon Islands. They may not know much about it. Why should we care who is Prime Minister there?
Yeah, well, this particular election has had probably more interest than many of the previous elections in the Solomon Islands. And the reason for all of the interest really is because it's become of quite significance to the United States and China. Because the Solomon Islands, well, firstly, they switched diplomatic alliances from Taiwan to Beijing back in 2019, which caught a lot of countries off guard, including here in Australia. Then a few years later, they signed a secretive security pact with Beijing, which caused a lot of unease in this part of the world. And you have to think really geographically where it's situated. It's not that far off the coast for Australia in terms of how close this country is to some of its neighbours. And the concern really was that given that the security pact that was signed with China was very secretive, not a lot was known about it, there were concerns that China were going to use the Solomon Islands, potentially even to create a naval base in the region. So that obviously caused a lot of alarm, and that's why there's been so much focus on this election, because people wanted to see if the country was going to continue with these pro-China policies over the next few years. And given the candidate who has been elected today, Mr. Manele, it does look like that those pro-China policies are going to continue. He's somebody really who is seen as a continuity candidate, somebody who isn't going to rock the boat, although he may be a little bit more measured than his predecessor, Mr. Sagave, who at times was very unpredictable, very volatile, and had a lot of criticism for the West, particularly here in Australia.
And how do the public feel in the Solomon Islands about not just about their new Prime Minister, but about the direction he continues to take the country in?
Well, I think there's a feeling that this is going to be more of the same, really, over the next few years. Mr. Manele was a key member of the former administration cabinet. We understand he had a very close relationship with the former Prime Minister, was a real key ally and involved in a lot of the strategic decision-making. But really, for people in the Solomon Islands, the key issues for this election were more around domestic concerns, including the economy, improving access to healthcare, improving infrastructure. That is really what they cared about, and what many voters were telling analysts and media companies in the Solomon Islands. It wasn't really about the geopolitical situation. So I think there is going to be some pressure on the new man coming in to focus on some of those day-to-day concerns. A lot of people's criticism of the former Prime Minister was that he was too distracted by his relationship with China and the big kind of infrastructure and development projects, given the Chinese money that has been coming into the country, and somewhat took his eye off the ball when it came to the day-to-day economy. And this is a country that, you know, it's very poor. It's struggled a lot since the pandemic. There's been a number of problems over the years, a lot of social unrest in recent years. So there's lots of problems at home. But of course, most of the international focus is on the country's affairs with both Beijing and Australia.
It's really informative. Thank you, Adam. That's our reporter in Sydney, Adam Hancock.